What up, dudes? It's Gaz, and welcome to another Warframe video. So, the topic for today is basically an updated version of Mark for Death Ash in 2021. Keep in mind that Mark for Death, from when it initially came out, is not anywhere near as hilariously powerful anymore. There was lots of bugs, air quotes, and there were some specific nerfs as well, where you actually need to be pretty specific in the ways you use Mark for Death on any frame nowadays. And lots of weapons that you were using with Mark for Death way back in the day, well, way back 1 year ago, are not really as viable. We're also going to be taking it another step further, where we involve Mr. Buck over here, and the special dog abilities that we can actually go over as well. So before we get into it, it's going to be a little bit longer, lots of describing of what's going on, like showing builds here. Before we get into it, make sure you are subbed to the YouTube channel, and make sure you check out the live stream channel as well. Hit that follow button to see when we go live. Alright, so Mark for Death Ash. This video will expect that you know what Mark for Death is supposed to do. We'll briefly go over it here, though. So what Mark for Death will do, it is a level 6 Helminth ability you unlock from the Helminth chair, which the Helminth system can be unlocked by getting to rank 3 with the Necrolisk Deimos faction and going to the Sun NPC and buying the Helminth segment for 15,000 standing. You'll also need to start feeding a bunch of resources to it and all this kind of stuff. But eventually, if you put lots of resources in there, you can get to level 6 to get this Marked for Death ability. Now what this will do, when you cast it, it replaces one of your normal abilities. So I've taken off Bladestorm here. You could, of course, replace other abilities if you felt like it. But we replace Bladestorm on this setup. And we will be casting this using 50 energy at base. And it will mark an enemy. The enemy gets stunned. And then when we deal damage to that enemy, they will transfer a portion of it to enemies in the area. Now, here's where things got nerfed a while ago. If the enemy has like a huge amount of health, let's say, I'm going to show this example right here. So I've summoned in some Corrupted Butchers. They have low health. They've got 100 Clone Flesh and 5 Ferrite Armor. We've also summoned in some Heavy Gunners with 700 Clone Flesh and 500 Ferrite Armor. And then other enemies of various health types and health amounts. What they did is you basically need to hunt down the high health targets in your missions to basically make the damage explosion hit the other guys. And additionally, like I said, it will not go. You need to find the high health targets because it will not go above their maximum health value. That's where this dog ability, the Mecha Set Bonus, will come into effect. But let's just show Mark for Death first off. Alright, so we're going to use the 4th ability on Ash that we just replaced. Now the enemy is marked for death. If we hit them with damage, it transfers the damage to the other enemies in the area. But as you can see, that guy just got tickled because that guy's armor and his health is much higher than that butcher we just killed. That's why you need to basically cheese it. And this is just, it'll be a refresh for a lot of people that don't know about that. But the way you cheese it is you want to actually use damage over time effects. Because it will transfer the stats effects of those enemies as well when the enemy dies. And also will technically multiply it by power strength as well. But it gets capped out pretty quickly. And this 119% will be fine. So, what I said we're also using is going to be the Mecha Set Bonus. So this is basically like another mini Mark for Death. Companion marks an enemy within 15... Marks a target every 15 seconds for 12 seconds. Killing a target applies the status effects to all enemies within 30 meters. This goes through walls. So it's not on a sight. This goes through walls. And this can proc off of this. Making your insta-kill range quite large with these slash procs. So the explosion range is 17.5 with this build. It's not max range. You could technically go max range if you wanted to go for like overextended. But for the purpose of this build, I'd say if you want to try this playstyle out, you can tinker with it. You got Fatal Teleport in here just because I put an Augment Polarity on my Ash. But you could definitely find something else to put on there if you didn't want to do a finisher build. We'll show a couple different setups here. We're going to do heavy attacks, heat procs, and finishers. So that's basically the thing. We have Mecha Empowered. The more of this set bonus you have on your build, the faster the dog will mark things. So let's see. If we take this one off, Mecha Pulse, to give you increased armor when the enemies die. The cooldown goes to 30 seconds from 15. So you really need to have basically the entire mod set on here, or the cooldown's insanely high. Because the more this is marking, the more you're getting AoE slash proc death, which is what you want. So let's just show the same thing here. We'll be using a heavy attack Scythe, because there's certain weapons in this game. The heavy attacks will do 4 slash procs. Scythes being one of them. We got a Riven mod for the Hate, which is the Stalker's Scythe. It's not exactly a min-max build. I'll need to formula some more. You would probably want to put on Smite Grenier, Smite Corpus, whatever faction you're fighting against, because this will apply more to slash procs. And keep in mind, that Ash's passive gives you increased slash proc damage, making this a very potent combination. His other abilities, we're using teleport for the finisher setup, but we'll show that in a second here. So, let's get them in here. Now keep in mind, I'm going to put some Steel Path gameplay here as well, but what you want to go for is you want to go for damage over time effects. So, let's, you can also use viral procs to increase the damage enemies take. So let's see, that enemy right there is marked by dog. Let's hit them with this. It should be enough to kill everybody. Now see, even with the dog mark increasing the damage, they're still not going to insta-die. That's what you still should probably go for the high health targets when you're creating these slash procs. Now let's do the same thing, but we're going to use Mark for Death instead. That was the dog attack there. We're using the Epitaph with no heat procs, because you don't want to have a heat proc in there to eat up your Mark for Death, because that tick will get overridden. So as you can see right there, without the dog proc, it's actually not as great, but that's the thing, that these two things feed into each other. The biggest problem with this entire build, though, is that the dog icon for the Mark for Dog attack is very hard to see, in my opinion. And I've not been able to find any way to replace the color it is. It's usually white, as you can see right there. That's the Mark for Dog. This dog icon above his head, it's very hard to see. That's marked for dog. So if you stack them both together, you can get some hilarious effects. So that was like 36k. I've seen 1.4 million easily. So that's the heavy attack build. So there's basically any heavy attack build that forces slash. There's quite a few weapons that do it. A Glaive Prime should be fine for this. A Scythe is really good for it. There's probably other ones as well I'm forgetting about, but those are the two main ones a lot of people would like. And you need to do slash procs, because if you just do an upfront base damage, it's not going to kill all these guys. Oh, Nikanas should be good too. So things, also daggers. Like I said, there's lots of weapons that have force slash procs and heavy. Hopefully it doesn't get nerfed anytime soon. But you see what we're kind of going for here. The Quastas should be pretty good as well. You want the enemy to die very quickly. So let's show the finisher setup here, which will involve our rapiers. Now rapiers have force slash procs on the finishers. So if we just do something like, which one do we want to use? Let's just use this one. So we've got Finishing Touch, Prime Bane of the Grenier. So this is where you're going to switch out your Bane mod. We're fighting a corrupted enemy, so we can put the corrupted Bane mod on here. You've got a Finisher Damage Riven, and everything else is basically just crit. I mean, you could min-max this more, but I don't really feel like it's super necessary. Just going for like really high base damage and crit stuff is what you're going to want to go for here. And you can just go with Zeneric Focus School, because you don't even need the combo multiplier. We'll show the heat build as well, and then we'll hop into the mission. Just showing. So this is the Struzza. This is one that's quite easy to use. Let's go for like a medium health target here. This guy right here, the Corrupted Lancer. I'm going to use the 4. I'm going to use Ash's 3 twice. Now we get 4 slash procs. As you can see, these shielded enemies don't really care about it as much. Now if an enemy was marked for dog and they died to the slash proc, the dog slash proc would transfer to the enemies in the area, and they basically double dip off of each other. Just a continuous slash, a slash vortex basically. So let's try to get that to go off here. We have to wait 12 seconds for Mark for Dog to happen, and we have to also see the icon. Now, here's the big problem, like I said. Since the dog icon's hard to see, there are times, so let's not even kill her. Let's kill this enemy instead. The dog slash proc will go off of her. They were already dead. Well, that's the thing, is you have to basically be in line of sight of the dogged enemy. Let's try heat procs now. We're going to use the Phantasm with a heat-focused build. You have to basically be in line of sight of the enemy to die to the Mark for Death to make the dog slash proc no line of sight ability go off. So looks like it's been reliably marking this enemy. So let's mark them for dog, as they already are marked for dog. And as you see, that's a pretty juicy heat proc, and this is with no crit as well. The Phantasma is like a 2% crit weapon, so you can use lots of different things for this. I've got the Phantasma here with a. So here's the biggest thing. You need to make sure your heat is the highest proc priority. So you want to run Blaze, Scattering Inferno, and Incendiary Coat. If you take Incendiary Coat off, as you can see, the Corrosive and the Heat are evenly distributed, and you will not get as many heat procs, because you want more heat procs than Corrosive. This thing procs a lot of status, and you want the heat procs to be highest, because you only need 10 corrosive procs, or 10 viral procs. It ended up being that the corrosive actually came out ahead for this specifically, but you could definitely run viral instead. Things like the Phage also work for this, and things like slash procs reliant should work as well. So let's do internal bleeding with the Kuva Shakur really quick before we jump into the gameplay footage. We've shown this in the video on the channel as well. Not even going full damage right now. We're just going for frying fast hands. All right, I haven't even tried this. Let's see how it goes. Now, keep in mind, Mark for Death still is not really God tier. I wouldn't call it God tier at all. I wouldn't really recommend it actively. This is a fun playstyle, in my opinion. So let's mark her for death. Headshot slash proc. And it did not do that well. Let's get this guy. He's marked for dog. And yeah, they basically have to die with a slash proc on them to transfer a big one to the enemies. So that one didn't turn out as well as I was hoping for. So you just do that. Like I said, make sure you're picking your targets properly. And you might have some fun. Alright, so let's jump into that Steel Path footage. Now keep in mind, this is just a Grenier mission. It's Selkie, the highest level Grenier mission, survival. And we actually got attacked by some shielded assassins while we were at it. Now here's the, like I said, the guy who was marked for dog was on the other side of this box. That's the main crux of the problem with this build. Not to mention, it's kind of inconsistent as well. That guy was behind the box. I killed him with mark for death. The guy marked for dog was out of line of sight, so I was not able to do the slash vortex explosion. But let me tell you, when this does go off properly, it's really nice. The biggest problem is that the Kubrows are kind of really outdated. They're not Smitas. Smitas are just like really, really good. They give you double resources. They give you infinite energy. They give you stuff like that. Orange crits all over the place. My Buck dog, Buck, he makes me invisible, and I'm already invisible on Ash. So that's not really super important. And like I said, it's inconsistent because of line of sight. Like I see that guy's marked for dog right there. We do our slash proc. The guys are already dead, but you know, it is nice to go off of each other. If you don't want to run a Smita, if you don't want to run a Helios, this is a fun little combination you could try out. And like I said, you could do it with heavy attacks too. You could do it with heat procs. The finishers one is very easy with Ash, just because it's like you see an enemy, you double tap your 3. That guy has been slash proc finishered, and you can just move on with your day. Basically nuking the entire room with the slash proc. Yeah, so I say go for like elite lancers. You can go for bombards, bombards, heavy gunners. Those are the kinds of enemies you should be going for because they have the highest health values. Because even like I showed in the initial footage, if you're going for a low health butcher, that slash proc from the finisher might not be enough to kill everyone around. Like I said, you could min-max it more, put some more like elemental damage on your build. You know, maybe put like more finisher stuff. Like it's really up for tinkering, and you could put more power strength on here as well. Maybe if you wanted to take off prime flow on, if you don't feel like you needed prime flow for your Ash build, maybe you could just like try something else out. It's basically, I want to get this idea out there to you guys where it's like there was the dog thing going off right there too. The dog effect feeding off of the mark for death was just right there in the video. I wanted to just get this idea out there so you guys can tinker with it a little bit, see what works for you, if you think it's worth your time. You get a huge bump in armor from using Mecha Empowered, I think it's called. The one that gives you armor however enemies die near you. Like there's right there, 1920% increased armor. We're invisible as Ash. We don't really care about that extra armor, but it's kind of funny, to be honest, that we get a huge chunk of extra armor. If you want to run a no-invis Ash setup, this might be a gateway to do that, because lots of enemies die to slash procs. I mean, these are the highest level enemies we can spawn, or not even spawn. We're in the Steel Path. You would eventually probably not one-shot them, but like imagine having to do this twice to an enemy. If you did this twice to an enemy, they're taking, like, because slash procs ignore armor, they would be donezo. They would be done after 2 of these for sure. Like I said, so here's the biggest problem with this. The mark for death is line of sight, and the second biggest problem is that the dog icon's hard to see. So I'd say don't worry too much about the dog, mark for dog, a little like icon thing. Just like play at your leisure. Use your finishers to kill everybody. Use your heavy attacks to kill everybody. Use your heat procs from your Phantasma or your Phage or whatever to kill everybody. And then if you get the dog explosion to go off, that's just a little extra bonus where you know, you're getting more damage. You're getting more AoE. Like, it basically doubles the range of mark for death, and we're not even going for a max range build. The dog explosion does not require any mods, really. I can quickly show the dog build again. We can also show the epitaph build. I'll tell you what I was talking about with the basically the Kuva Nucor is not as useful for this, because the Kuva Nucor will make the radiation procs on the enemies, and those enemies that are radiation proc will shoot each other, taking your mark for death proc away. Not super important or really that big of a deal if you do use the Kuva Nucor over it, because this doesn't require viral at all, but you see what I'm going for here. So here is the epitaph build. Increased blast radius. Only viral, so don't go for heat, because the heat ticks are also going to eat your mark for death. like a multi-shot Riven. I guess you could go for stash chance on a better rolled version of this. Augur Seeker, just because you don't, we usually run the heat mod in this slot, but we don't want to run a heat mod because we don't want that fire proc. So Augur Seeker gives you more stash duration on the viral procs, pretty decent. And then fire rate, blah blah blah. You know how it kind of is with these condition overload procking weapons nowadays, guys. Yeah, so this is the video for you. I hope you found it helpful. There will be the melee nerfs and gun buffs in the next couple days, and I can't wait. I really can't wait. How are they gonna justify the unequip your melee and get increased gun damage mod? I can't wait to hear the explanation. It should be a fun day, hopefully, and we'll see. We can maybe point and laugh, or we can point and cry. I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy, and peace.